Shabbat Shalom. In 1987, the United States federal government gave states permission to raise the speed limit from 55 to 65 miles per hour. Not surprisingly, many states accepted the permission, and it was later found that drivers were able to shorten their economically unproductive commute time by going about 2 miles per hour faster on average. However, vehicular fatalities rose by 1/3. Here's the math. For every 125,000 hours of driving saved, one person died. If we consider the death solely as the loss of a productive worker at average wages, the trade-off between the time savings and the increased risk of fatalities suggests that state decision makers put the value of human life at about $1.5 million. If time is money, and the value of a human life is solely determined by how much money he or she can earn, then every person is only worth so much time. Beyond that limit, better to have the time than the person. In a fact not surprising to actuaries and those who work in certain fields, value of human life is a statistical term. It is the cost of reducing the average number of deaths by 1. Statisticians will tell you that different government agencies assign a dollar amount to the value of human life. It is a necessary component in certain decision making. Whether or not we think about it, and most of us do not want to think about it, each of us has a dollar value on our heads. Some calculate it by potential future earnings, others by what it would cost to save your life. There are other methods still. But in the end, there's always a dollar. This question of how do we value a human life is particularly germane at this moment in human history. After more than 2 months in lockdown, people are clamoring to get back to work. And many of their reasons deserve sympathy. Beyond wanting to see the grandchildren and worries about the value of Zoom-based education, the economic slowdown has cost people their livelihoods. Government support. Some will fall through the cracks. Whether in the short term or long, there will be deaths due to the lockdown. In today's debates, the livelihood of the hairstylist is pitted against the potential spread of this disease. My neighborhood barber needs the income to pay for food, without which he can't survive. But neither can some of the clients he sees were they to catch COVID-19 while sitting in his chair. It has been asked how many deaths is tolerable for us to open up the economy. We want to say 0. Obviously, 0. We don't want anyone to die because we want to watch the Raptors. And any other answer makes you a monster. But even that is too simplistic. You can survive without the NBA, and the players and the owners will do just fine. What though of the cleaners, the ticket takers, and the concession stands employees? 2 points sometimes get lost in the heat of the discussion. 1, not opening also comes at a human cost. Perhaps it is less immediate and less dramatic, but there is and will continue to be a loss of life. And 2, we've already internalized accepted levels of death for our enjoyment and the sustaining of an economy that not only provides essential needs, but permits us the freedom to build home additions, travel to Europe, and go to concerts. Life would be safer, though more boring, if those speed limits were reduced. Just ask John Tory. But we have places to go and people to see. We want to drive faster. Surprisingly, and perhaps more significantly, some scientists have suggested that this new coronavirus may actually be creating a net savings of lives. How? The reduction of air pollution has been so dramatic during this lockdown that tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people are avoiding premature deaths as a result. Without the exhaust from factories and cars, people are living longer. While no one is suggesting that COVID-19 is a good thing, because on a strictly utilitarian level, it may actually be saving more lives than it is taking, this new reality, with its complications and permutations, with the lives saved and lives lost with every decision to open or close, who's feeding all those kids who rely on school lunches and breakfasts? We have to be sensitive to the implications of every decision. We have to be very clear on what we mean by the value of a human life. Is this something that should be measured in economic terms? Can we place a dollar value on a person? Speak to the Israelite people and say to them, when anyone explicitly vows to the Lord the equivalent for a human being, the following scale shall apply. If it is a male from 20 to 60 years of age, the equivalent is 50 shekels of silver by the sanctuary weight. If it is a female, the equivalent is 30 shekels. If the age is from 5 years to 20 years, the equivalent is 20 shekels for a male and 10 shekels for a female. If the age is from 1 month to 5 years, the equivalent for a male is 5 shekels of silver, and the equivalent for a female is 3 shekels of silver. If the age is 60 years or over, the equivalent is 15 shekels in the case of a male, and 10 shekels for a female. This week's Torah reading, in fact, does seem to put a dollar value, or different values depending on age and sex, on a human life. If someone says, I commit myself or my child to God, the Torah explains that such a person can, or really should, pay a certain amount to the temple treasury. Remarkably, the early pre-rabbinic commentator Philo notes that there is some level of standardization. The prices are in categories, and presumably are based on the labor that the individuals in this category can contribute to the sanctuary. And Philo compares this system with other systems and societies and how they value human life, noting that the status of the one making the vow is irrelevant to the price of the one proffered, that factors such as bodily conditions and beauty are irrelevant to the formulation. And most importantly, he writes, quote, inequality is valued among men, but equality is honored by God. In short, since we are all created in the image of God, we are all of indefinable and indeed infinite worth. No provision is made in the Torah for blood money. A murderer cannot pay his way out of his crime because the value of the victim's life cannot be measured in dollars and cents. A human life is beyond value. Human dignity cannot be traded for a new pair of jeans. That must be our starting point, and it is played out through the idea of pikuach nefesh, saving a human life. There are a few things that override pikuach nefesh. Certainly, we may not put ourselves into danger for collective prayer. That's why even in some jurisdictions like Chicago, where communal prayer is legal, rabbinical authorities this week continue to forbade minyanim. We don't risk our lives to daven together. Yet, saving a life does not override all other injunctions. Reasonably, we are not allowed to murder another in order to save our own life. More challenging is that one should rather die than participate in public idol worship or engage in certain forbidden sexual activities. Though it is not monetarily quantifiable, our own religion does put a limit on a human life. There are activities so abhorrent that they are worth losing a life over. Sadly, this week, we remember Staff Sergeant Amit Ben Yigal, killed during a raid in the West Bank. Jewish society, and Israeli society more specifically, are willing to risk lives to secure political ends, to safeguard the Jewish homeland, to ensure the viability of a Jewish state. We accept that lives may be lost to ensure that lives can be saved. Judaism fundamentally asserts that a person is not a means to economic activity, but an individual of infinite human dignity. We value someone not for what they do, but for who they are, a human being created in the image of God. There will be difficult decisions ahead for politicians, and anyone who has to choose whether and when to leave their home, or to open a business, or go grocery shopping for that thing you want, but could live without. We do have some general guidelines to live by. We prize human life. We break almost every single law in the Torah to save it. We are not required to risk our lives to save another, and our life takes priority over another. We worry more about approximate death than one that might occur in the future. But never forget to care for the orphan, the widow, and the stranger. We do not sacrifice the vulnerable on the altar of our own hedonism. We don't just flatten the curve so that our emergency rooms have enough capacity to care for everyone who is ill. We try to drag this out because the longer we do, the better the treatments will get, even if that means staying at home to keep everyone safe. I wish all those making decisions during these times wisdom and the strength to make the right decisions, especially when they are the most difficult ones. Shabbat Shalom.